I missed my brother's funeral by one day. One damn day. And the worst part is, I didn't even know he was gone until it was already over. I'm Frank Talbot. I'm 88 years old. I live alone in rural Pennsylvania, the kind of place where the nights are quiet enough to hear the refrigerator hum and the wind scrape the porch rails like it's looking for a way inside. I've been here a long time, long enough to watch the same roads crack and get patched, the same barns lean a little farther each winter, the same faces disappear from the diner wall, photos one by one. Most people around here knew me as the mechanic, not the talker, not the handshaker, the man you brought your truck to when it wouldn't start, when the engine knocked, when the heat went out in January and you didn't want to admit you were scared you'd freeze. I ran a small auto shop for 46 years in Monroe County. Grease under my nails, coffee in a paper cup, radio low. A life built on fixing what was broken and sending it back out into the world like it never happened. I was good at that kind of repair. Talking wasn't my trade. People always told me I had steady hands. Like that was a compliment. Like steady hands meant a steady heart. Truth is, my hands knew what to do better than my mouth ever did. Machines made sense. They gave you signs. They followed rules. You listened close enough, you could tell what was wrong. You could tighten a bolt, replace a belt, swap a part, and the thing would forgive you. People weren't like that. They don't come with manuals. People carried hurt that didn't rattle. People broke quietly. People needed words, and I never had the right ones ready when it mattered. I had a brother named Danny. He was younger than me by 4 years, but he always felt older in the ways that count. He remembered birthdays. He asked questions and waited for the answer. He could sit in silence without turning it into a weapon. He had this soft way about him, like he didn't want to take up too much space, even when he had every right to. We grew up poor. 1 bedroom, 1 thin wall between us and the world. I'd fall asleep listening to him read out loud from library books he'd checked out with coins he saved. I'd tinker with whatever scraps I could find, old radios, busted lawnmower parts, anything with screws and wires. He loved stories. I loved tools. Somehow, in that cramped little room, it worked. We didn't always understand each other, but we belonged to the same beginning. Then we got older and life started doing what it does. Work, bills, long shifts that turn into long years. A marriage that didn't last. A house that always needed something fixed. The kind of tired that doesn't go away after sleep, because it's not your body that's exhausted, it's your patience, your hope, your willingness to explain yourself. Danny moved a little farther out. Not far enough to be unreachable, just far enough to make someday feel reasonable. And that's the dangerous part about distance. It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be enough that you can keep telling yourself you'll cross it later. For a while, Danny tried. He called. He left messages. He asked if I wanted to grab breakfast, if I needed anything, if I'd come by for a weekend. He'd say things like, just checking in, like it was no big deal. Like he wasn't handing me a chance to stay connected. I'd answer sometimes. Short. Practical. The way I talk to customers. Yeah, I'm fine. Is woe. Busy this week. Is woe. Maybe next month. Is woe. And when I didn't answer, he'd try again later. Not angry, not guilt-tripping, just steady, like he believed time was on our side. I didn't. Not because I thought he'd leave. Not because I didn't care. Because caring felt like a job I didn't know how to do. The older I got, the more I convinced myself that silence was safer than saying the wrong thing. I told myself I'd call when I had something worth saying, when I wasn't so worn out, when I could be the kind of brother he deserved, when I was ready. I didn't say that out loud, of course. I just lived it. Then, last week, I got the letter. It wasn't a text. It wasn't a phone call. It was an envelope sitting in my mailbox like any other piece of junk mail, except it was heavier. Thick paper, typed words, a name I didn't recognize in the return address. Inside was a note from a woman named Clara. She wrote that she had taken care of my brother during the last year of his life. She said she couldn't find a number, only my address on an old envelope. She said he'd been sick for a while. She said he passed away last Tuesday, and the funeral was yesterday, 1 day late. A whole lifetime late, really, but it still stung like the clock had played a cruel joke on me. I stood in my kitchen holding that letter with both hands, like it might shake loose and turn into something else if I stared hard enough. Like maybe I'd read it wrong. Like maybe there was another page that said, "Please call him. He's asking for you." End quote. There wasn't. Clara wrote one line that I can't get out of my head. "I thought you should know. He spoke of you often." End quote. He spoke of me often. 12 years of silence, and he still carried my name around like it meant something. I sat down at the table and I didn't move for a long time. The coffee in my mug went cold. The house stayed quiet. The world kept doing what it does, cars on the road, birds on the wire, the clock above the sink ticking like it had no idea what it had just taken from me. That's the moment I understood the most dangerous lie I've ever told myself. Not the kind of lie you tell to someone else. The kind you whisper to yourself so you can sleep at night. "They'll always be there when I'm ready." End quote. That sentence is smooth. It's comforting. It lets you put things off without feeling like a bad person. It lets you believe the door stays open just because you haven't locked it yet. They'll always be there when I'm ready. And so, I carried it for decades, like a spare key in my pocket. I didn't even notice the weight of it anymore. Because the truth is, I wasn't cruel. I wasn't heartless. I didn't wake up one day and decide to abandon my brother. I just kept choosing later. Later, when the shop wasn't so busy. Later, when the bills were paid. Later, when the holidays weren't complicated. Later, when I wasn't so tired. Later, when the silence wouldn't feel so awkward. Later, when I could be proud of the man I'd become before I let him see me again. And every time Danny reached out, I told myself the same thing. Not today. Soon. When I'm ready. That's how the pattern starts. Not with a fight. Not with a slammed door. Not with shouting or betrayal. It starts with a missed call you don't return. A message you read and think, "I'll answer tomorrow." A birthday you mean to acknowledge but don't. A year you lose without noticing. Then another. Then another. The space between you doesn't open all at once. It opens an inch at a time, quietly, while you're busy living your life and telling yourself there's still plenty of time. Until one day you look up and realize the gap has turned into a canyon, and you don't even remember the moment it stopped being easy to cross day. That's the part nobody warned you about. People think distance happens because of some big betrayal, a screaming match, a slammed door, something you can point to and say, that's when it ended. End quote. But with me and Danny, it wasn't like that. It was ordinary. It was a Tuesday when the shop ran late, and I told myself I'd call him after dinner. Then I fell asleep in the recliner with my boots still on. It was a Sunday morning when I saw his name on the caller ID and thought, I don't have the energy for this right now, and let it ring out. It was a holiday card I meant to send back, sitting on the counter under a stack of receipts until the season passed and it felt too late to answer without making it weird. And every time I skipped a day, I told myself I was skipping one small thing. Not a relationship, just a call, just a reply, just a visit, just this once. That's how the pattern builds. It stacks up like old parts in the corner of a garage, things you swear you'll sort through when you have time. You don't throw them away. You don't touch them. You just let them sit, collecting dust, until the dust becomes the point. I kept telling myself Danny understood. He was patient. He always had been. He was the kind of man who'd knock twice and wait, who'd leave the porch light on for you even if you came home late. So I let his patience become my excuse. I let his kindness turn into permission. I told myself, he knows I'm busy. I told myself, he knows I'm not good with words. I told myself, he knows I love him. And maybe he did. But love isn't something you get to store away like a tool you'll use later. It's something you have to pick up over and over, even when your hands are tired. The years slip by in small, forgettable moments. A missed birthday, a missed Thanksgiving, a winter where the roads iced over and I told myself it wasn't safe to drive. A summer where I worked 6 days a week and said I'd make it out when things slowed down. Things never slowed down. They just changed shape. My hair went white. My shop got quieter. The men I used to drink coffee with stopped coming in. Some moved. Some died. The town kept going, but it went without certain people, and I didn't notice how normal that had become. I didn't notice I was practicing for losing Danny. Then one night, not long after Clara's letter, I found the card. It was sitting exactly where it had been, left on top of the old television in my living room. The same TV I barely watched anymore. A flat layer of dust clung to the screen like a film, soft and grey, the way ash settles after a fire has already burned itself out. The envelope was still sealed. Danny's handwriting was on the front, neat and careful. My name looked strange in ink that wasn't mine. Frank. And just that. No last name. No anger. No distance. I stood there staring at it, my thumb rubbing the corner without meaning to, like I could feel time in the paper. The house was quiet except for the ticking of the wall clock and the low groan of the heater kicking on. Somewhere outside, a dog barked once and then stopped, like even it didn't want to interrupt. I didn't sit down. I didn't turn on a light. I just stood in the half dark, holding that envelope like it was something fragile, because I remembered the day it came. I remembered seeing it on the mail pile and thinking, I'll open it after I wash up. I remembered telling myself, I'll call him next week. I never did. My fingers slid under the flap and tore it open with a soft rip that sounded louder than it should have. Paper has a way of making silence feel guilty. The card inside was a simple one, blue stripes, cheap gold lettering. I could smell the faint, sweet scent of old cardboard and dust, like the inside of a drawer that hasn't been opened in years. I read his words once. Then again, happy birthday, big brother. Let me know if you want company this year. And there was a little drawing under it, simple and childish, like he'd done it just to make me smile. A wrench beside a small book. My throat tightened, but nothing came out. No laugh. No curse. No prayer. I just stood there with that card open in my hands, the ink staring back at me, and the quiet of the room pressing in from every corner. Because there it was, in plain black letters, an invitation, a door still open, and all I could hear was the sound of my own breathing, slow and uneven, like an engine that won't turn over. And for the first time in my life, I didn't know how to fix what I'd broken. The next morning, I got dressed like it was any other day. Same worn jeans, same jacket that still smelled faintly of motor oil, no matter how many times I washed it. I didn't shave. I didn't eat. I just stood at the sink long enough to splash water on my face and stare at the man looking back at me, trying to figure out when he got so old. Then I drove into town. The sky was the color of dirty snow, low and flat, like it was pressing down on the roofs. My hands stayed tight on the steering wheel, knuckles pale, even though the road was familiar. I passed the hardware store, the post office, the same church with the white steeple that had been there my whole life, the one Danny and I used to walk past when we were boys, pretending we didn't care about anything. I ended up at the diner without deciding to. A radio played softly behind the counter, some old song barely loud enough to name. Becca was there. Young waitress, quick smile, hair pulled back, moving like she had 100 things to do and none of them could wait. She saw me, and her face brightened the way it always did. "Morning, Frank," she said. "Same booth?" I nodded. My boots stuck a little to the floor as I walked, the rubber squeaking against the tile. The booth by the window was the one Danny and I used to take. It wasn't special to anyone else. Just vinyl seats, cracked at the seams, a table with little scratches from years of forks and keys and impatient hands. I slid in on my side, out of habit, leaving the other seat open. Becca came over with her pad already out, pen hovering. "Your usual?" she asked. Then she glanced at the empty side across from me and smiled like she was remembering something sweet. "For two," there it was. 4 words that landed heavier than the letter. "Your usual for 2. I know. My mouth opened. Nothing came out. I felt the air in my throat like it had turned to rust. My tongue wouldn't move. I could hear the clink of dishes behind the counter, the hiss of the grill, the low murmur of other people talking about weather and football and things that still had tomorrows. Becca waited. Her smile faltered just a little, confusion flickering in her eyes. I nodded anyway. Not because I wanted the food, because I couldn't bear to correct her, because saying the truth out loud would make it real. She walked away, and I stared at the tabletop. There was a little sugar packet torn open near the edge, grains spilled like tiny white stones. Someone had carved their initials into the wood years ago. I traced the grooves with my finger without thinking, feeling the roughness catch my skin. A few minutes later, Becca came back balancing 2 plates. 2. She set them down with a soft thud. The smell of eggs and toast rose up warm and familiar, but it turned my stomach. Steam curled off the food and vanished into the air like it had nowhere to go. She placed a second cup of coffee across from me. "Here you go," she said, cheerful, automatic. "Tell your brother I said hi." "I know." Then she walked away. I sat there staring at that empty seat like it was a ghost that hadn't decided whether to leave yet. The coffee on his side sat untouched, a thin ripple trembling on the surface every time someone passed by. A pat of butter melted slowly on the toast, shining under the diner lights like it was trying too hard. I lifted my fork. I took one bite. It tasted like cardboard. Not because it was bad, because my chest had gone numb. And that's when it hit me clearer than any wrench in my hand, sharper than any pain I'd ever tried to ignore. It wasn't the things I said that haunted me. It was the things I never said. The calls I didn't make because I was tired. The apologies I swallowed because I didn't want to feel weak. The simple words that cost nothing. "I miss you. I'm sorry. Come over. Stay a while." That I kept locked behind pride and habit and that stupid belief that there would always be another week. That's the lie time tells you. That people wait. They don't. Life keeps moving. Bodies get frail. Hearts stop. Funerals happen on ordinary days, and the world doesn't pause just because you weren't ready. So listen to me, really listen. If there's someone you love and you've been putting them off, you are gambling with a clock you can't see. One day you'll reach for the phone and there will be no one left to answer. And you'll finally find the right words when it's too late to speak them. It's not the things I said that haunt me. It's the things I never said and now never can.